Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Tina Teherantia. Many of you know me, but for those of you who don't, I'm happy to be here with my other colleagues who have helped put together this event. I want to ask each of them to say hi and introduce themselves. So maybe we'll start with Marie De Bono. Marie?
Good afternoon, everyone. Yes, Marie De Bono. I'm from the Aurora Assante office, and I'd like to welcome everyone today.
Thanks, Marie. Next is Avi.
Hey everyone, nice for you guys to join us. My name is Avi. I work with Tina Tarantian and her team. We represent the Etobicoke office. Excited to see you guys.
Thank you, Avi. And Marilyn Maxan.
Hello, everyone. I'm Marilyn Maxon, and I work in the Mississauga branch with Assante Capital Management, and I'm very happy that you're all able to join us this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. And Janine Purvis.
Hi, and many of you I've met as well, worked in Richmond Hill and now back in the Aurora office. So I'm really excited to learn about what we can do to keep our brains healthy.
Thanks, Janine. And Laura Southall.
Hi, I'm Laura Southall. Thank you so much for coming tonight. We're very excited to hear this presentation.
Thank you, Laura. And finally, last but not least, Sarah Zolo.
Thanks, Tina. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Looking forward to the seminar today. My name is Sarah Zolo, and I work out of the Aurora office at Assante.
Thank you. Thank you to all of you. So today's topic, I think, is top of mind for many of us, brain health. And we're going to be talking about, our speakers are going to be talking about how to eat yourself to brain health. Dementia has been on the rise in Canada. And I just wanted to share some stats with you about dementia that I found quite shocking myself. As of January of 2024, this year, it's estimated that over 733,000 people in Canada are living with dementia. Every day, more than 350 people in Canada develop dementia. This is more than 15 every hour. By 2030, nearly 1 million people in Canada could live with dementia. And by 2030, the number of people in Canada living with dementia could increase 65% compared to 2020. During the 2040s, it's estimated that over 20,000 Canadians will develop dementia every month. And by 2050, more than 1.7 million people in Canada could have dementia. This would mean by 2050, 685 people will be diagnosed each day with dementia, or 29 people every hour. And 6.3 million people in Canada will develop, live with, and or ultimately die with dementia between 2020 and 2050. So this is something that can affect each and every one of us, whether it's our family members, whether it's ourselves. I was affected by it. My own father died of Alzheimer's last year. So, and if you have even one parent who had dementia or Alzheimer's, your risk is elevated. So this is of utmost importance to myself as well. Let me introduce our speakers to you. We're very fortunate to have two amazing speakers today. Dr. Nasreen Khatri. Many of you may have heard her at our Joy of Aging event a few years ago. She's an award-winning registered clinical psychologist, gerontologist, neuroscientist, and educator with over 20 years of professional experience. She's a graduate of McGill University, and from 2004 to 2012, she led the Mood and Related Disorders Clinic and founded the Cognitive Behavior Therapy Service at Baycrest, a global leader in aging and brain health. In 2012, Dr. Khatri joined the Rothman Research Institute, a cognitive neuroscience institute fully affiliated with the University of Toronto, where she studies how depression impacts the aging brain. the neural link between depression and dementia across the adult lifespan, and innovates and tailors digital, scalable, self-management treatments for depression and anxiety, such as cognitive behavior therapy, mindfulness-based stress reduction, and exercise. She's a scientific officer of the Center for Aging and Brain Health Innovation. Dr. Khatri's research has been funded continuously since 2006 and has been published in peer-reviewed academic journals and book chapters. Dr. Khatri has completed over 500 presentations, serves as a mental health advisor for Bell Let's Talk, Girls E-Mentorship, and the Women's Brain Health Initiative, and has been cited by the CBC, the National, CTV, BNN, the Globe and Mail, the National Post, the Toronto Star, the Wall Street Journal, and dozens of other media outlets. Dr. Khatri has served as a co-chair of the McGill Women Leadership and Philanthropy Board and is a member of the Toronto Metropolitan University Ted Rogers School of Management Advisory Council for the Health Services Management Program. In addition, she consults as a subject matter expert and advises internationally to banks and business schools, including the Desautels School of Management at McGill University. Dr. Khatri received the 2016 Government of Ontario Leading Women Building Communities Award for the enormous impact of her work as a scientist and clinician. In 2023, she joined the Women's Brain Project, an international nonprofit organization studying sex and gender determinants of brain and mental health based in Zurich, Switzerland. So we're very happy to have Dr. Khatri address us today. And our other speaker, Samira Zarghami, who's a good friend and I've known her for a long time, is a dedicated dietitian with over 22 years of experience who brings a wealth of knowledge and expertise to the field. Graduating with honors from the Food and Nutrition program at the University of Western, completing a rigorous clinical dietitian internship, and obtaining her MBA in sustainability, she has honed her experience. In addition, as a certified diabetes educator and clinician, she's deeply committed to empowering individuals to take control of their health journey. Passionate about both human health and well-being of the planet, she has worked across various stages of life, fostering connections with people and simplifying complex nutrition information into easily digestible insights tailored to each individual. Recognizing the profound impact of nutrition on mental, physical, and emotional well-being, she emphasizes the importance of feeding the brain the right foods and nurturing the vital brain-gut connection. Known for her ability to make plates palatable and vibrant, she advocates for the inclusion of colorful, nutrient-dense foods in diets. As the founder of Stack and Spoon, she advocates for stacking nutrient-rich foods and savoring them with a spoonful of joy. Firmly believing that mindful consumption not only nourishes the body, but also fuels the mind, she enables individuals to thrive and excel. Amidst the uncontrollable elements of life, she believes that mindful selection of nourishing foods remains within one's power. It's her mission to inspire others to mindfully select nourishing foods, embracing each meal as an opportunity for self-care and vitality. And this is so important because there are many things in life that are out of our control. We cannot control our genes. We cannot control how the environment affects us, but we can control the food that we eat and we can control our lifestyle. So hopefully you will have some good takeaways from today's webinar. Talking about takeaways, there are tip sheets that Dr. Khatri and Samira Zarghami have provided, which will be posted in the chat box. So feel free to download those. There are some very good tips in those. Any questions that you have, please enter them either in the Q&A box or the chat box at the bottom of your Zoom screen. We will have a Q&A segment at the end of this presentation, and my colleague Sarah Zolo will be conducting that, and we will try and answer all of your questions by Dr. Khatri and Samira Zarghami. Thank you very much for your attention, and Dr. Khatri, over to you.
Thank you so much, Tina, for that warm and thorough introduction. I don't think all my family knows that much about me. That's very nice of you. Welcome, everybody. Good evening. Thank you so much for taking the time at the end of what I'm sure is a busy day to meet with us and talk about the brain-gut connection. I think to start with, I'm just going to set the stage for what brain health is and why it's important. So brain health is really the combination of mental health, which is our emotional well-being, and our cognitive health, which is our ability to think, plan, our memory, all those things that Tina was talking about that go away in dementia. And so let me talk a little bit about what the connection is between mood and cognition, and that together is brain health, and then what the connection is between brain health and the gut. So in terms of mood and cognition, we know that good mood is good for us physically, emotionally, in every way. When we are stressed, we have a reaction in the body, which is that the cortisol, or the stress hormone, goes up. And that's natural. It's a short-term reaction to stress to be able to fight or flight or to cope with the situation at hand and to focus very closely. However, we know that when cortisol levels become chronic, they become a neurotoxin. They actually kill brain cells. And the part of the brain where they kill cells is the part of the brain that I study, which is called the hippocampus. And all it is two seahorse-shaped structures, which are bilateral on both sides of the brain, and they are deep in the midbrain. And the reason I'm bringing it up is it's the crossroads of mood and memory. So when a person is depressed, that structure shrinks. And when they have dementia, it also shrinks. So now we know that there is a connection between depression and dementia. So the connection is that people who at any time in adulthood have had a history of untreated depression are twice as likely to have dementia later in life as individuals who don't share that untreated history. So my first kind of bit of information is it's really important if you're experiencing stress on an ongoing basis and are worried about your mood or anxiety to get that checkup from the neck up. Because if you save your mental health today, you're saving your cognitive health tomorrow, because there's really wonderful treatments, both medication and self-management treatments for depression, but currently dementia is untreatable. So that's the connection between mood and cognition in the brain. Now let's talk about how the brain is connected to the gut. So your brain actually communicates through your whole body through the nervous system. So the nervous system is simply your brain, your spinal cord, and all the nerve cells that emanate out from that system. And so if you ask the person on the street, where is your brain? People usually would just point to the head. But actually, we are our brains. The brain innervates and controls every aspect of our physical self, including breathing, blood pressure, heartbeat, all of those things. But it communicates the most with the gut. So if they were friends, they would be besties. And what do they talk about? Anything and everything. So the conversation topics range from the physical, signals about digestion, hunger, satiety, the kinds of things that you would expect. And they also communicate about emotion. So now why would that be? Well, there's more knowledge actually exchanged between your brain and your gut than any other body system, because outside of your brain, there are more nerve cells in your gut than anywhere else in your body. So for example, 95% of serotonin, which is a neurotransmitter that is associated with good mood, so it's the happy hormone, and is connected to antidepressant medication. So if you're on SSRIs, they're selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, right? And the purpose for them is to stop the reuptake between the nerve cells and keep the serotonin or keep that neurotransmitter circulating in the brain. So if you have more serotonin available, the theory is you're going to have better mood. But 95% of that is actually produced in your gut. So there is a very direct connection of like a biochemical connection between your brain and what it needs for you to have good mood and your gut. So what is the purpose of the gut-brain connection? Why is it so close? Well, it needs to be for us to survive. So one of the main things about survival is food and making sure that you have enough food sources that are healthy. So if you eat the wrong thing, you need to immediately get that signal that this is not the right food or that this could be something that is harmful. So you need an alarm system. However, because of the close connection to the neurotransmitters that are involved in mood and cognition, as we'll see, that alarm system also works emotionally. So let me give you an example. If you've ever had a gut feeling, it feels like it comes out of nowhere, like whatever your intuition or sense is, it's really circumvented any conscious thought. And then when you get that gut reaction, you stop, back up, and think about why you might feel that way. And we even have emotional words that are about the gut. Like if something very awful happens, it might be gut-wrenching. So there's a real constant conversation that's going on that needs to go on so that we can survive, so that we can eat the right things and avoid the wrong things, make sure we're fed enough and in time. And then it also has another kind of function that it helps, to mediate. And those things are like metabolism, hunger and satiety, food preferences and aversions, but also mood and anxiety. And so moving to what the solution is, how does food impact mood? Well, food is a lot of things, and Samira will speak to this more directly. It's a celebration, it's a joy, as she said, it's cultural, it's heritage, it's society, it's rules, it's so many things, but it's also, the brain is really a chemical soup. And a lot of this chemical soup actually resides in your gut. And so we have to put the right kinds of nutrients in our gut to be able to keep that, what we call the gut-brain axis running smoothly. So what would those foods be? So they'd be like high fiber foods like whole grains, fruits, and vegetables, probiotics. So when we talk about the gut biodome, really we're just talking about that world, right, of bacteria. We need to have a diversity and a certain amount of bacteria in our gut, the good bacteria. And that can be found directly in probiotics like fermented foods such as yogurt, sauerkraut, kefir, kombucha, miso. And then plant-based foods like lentils, legumes, vegetables, nuts, and seeds, which are high in antioxidants and may improve mood. So why would being high in antioxidants improve mood? So remember, earlier I talked about the idea of cortisol being a neurotoxin, right? So what it does is it kills cells. But what antioxidants do is that they prevent cell death. So all things being the same, if you're stressed and you eat foods that contain antioxidants, it's helping the cells in your body and your brain stay alive. And then there's the omega-3 fatty acids. So those foods that are rich in that are things like salmon, trout, and tuna. And what they do is that these acids help with the release of serotonin, again, the happy hormone, and help it work more efficiently. So it's directly tied to mood, as are whole grains such as oats, rye, brown rice, wholemeal, and bread. So that's how food impacts mood. How does food impact cognition? This, I think, is more intuitively obvious in the sense that food is a lot of things, but it's also considered fuel, right? Fuel for the brain and for the body. And when we eat the right foods, it is the cleanest, most efficient, most successful kind of fuel that we can give our brain and our body. And studies show that people who have a highly processed food diet have worse cognition, meaning mood, attention, memory, things like that, than people who have what we call more stereotypically the Mediterranean diet, which is kind of what I just described. So it's really important. Food is really important to your mental health and your well-being. It's really important to your cognition. And so along with other lifestyle factors, this is something that can change your risk for developing dementia by 30 to 40%. So not just eating well on its own, but it's that and also exercise, sleep, social connection, other things that we'll talk about probably during the Q&A. So I think that that's very important to remember. One of the main things that comes up is, so what are some of these mind, body, or if you want to call it brain, gut dysfunctions then? So sometimes gastrointestinal disorders like irritable bowel syndrome, for example, may benefit from mind-body work such as mindfulness. And why might that be? Well, one example is that when somebody is stressed and there's cortisol in your system and in your gut, it's harder to digest. So it's relaxing the gut, it's relaxing you, it's bringing down cortisol levels. And in general, improving your overall mood and stress levels may also optimize your gut indirectly because it's in a calmer, cooler state. So if we can move to the next slide, please. Great. Okay, well, we've been talking about this kind of all along, so we can move one more. And we'll keep going. This is the brain food. And in fact, I'm just going to stop here for a second again, back to the actual foods. You can see them there. So everything from avocado to apricots to broccoli to eggs to dark chocolate, my favorite. And if we could move to the next one. Thank you, Tina. And we'll stay with this. So just to give you a little bit of sense about mindfulness and how that might improve the brain-gut harmony is I actually did a study on mindfulness, not about diet, but about stress and cognition. And we were actually the first group at Baycrest to show that an 8-week mindfulness group actually brought down stress and anxiety levels in older adults. And that actually hadn't been tried before. And I'd just like to tell us a little anecdote about how I got into studying mindfulness, because I generally do clinical trials with very severely depressed individuals. And when I was asked to join the research team, I said, it's really not my area. And they asked me once, and then they asked me again. And I went home one evening, and my friend said, I think you should really work on that mindfulness study. And I said, really? Why? And she said, well, I think you could use some help being in the moment. To which my response was, I'm always in the moment, just not this one. And I think a lot of us can share that experience, that we're eating on the run, we're eating when we're upset, we're eating the things that we know aren't really going to help us. And so what I would suggest in the time remaining is to just try and incorporate a little bit of resting wakefulness into your life, as opposed to running, and then, just falling asleep. And another tip is to try to do one thing at a time, because multitasking is a myth. So even though you're not doing 2 cognitive tasks, if you're eating your lunch and checking emails, when you are not mindful, when you are eating, you're less picky about what you're eating, you're less enjoying what you're eating, the pace of it may not be right for your digestive system that day. And if you get upset or riled up by the things that you're reading or working on, that also doesn't help your digestion. So it's a wonderful idea to take a break, eat mindfully, even if it's just a little snack. And every little bit counts. So studies have shown that even when we don't ask people what they do for mindfulness, we just ask them if they practice mindfulness, just yes or no. We don't check on them. And they say yes, that group actually has better rates of mental health than those who don't. And my thought is that they're probably resting sometime in the day. I don't know how, but whatever it may be. So whether it's, yoga, deep breathing, being mindful with a snack, being mindful with the food, that's wonderful, because multitasking is really a myth anyway. When we're doing it cognitively, it's not good, like talking on the phone and looking at a screen. We're really doing very fast task switching, and that's really bad for the brain. And it wears down cognition and it wears down mood. So mindfulness and other calming practices help to do a lot of things. They help to oxygenate the brain, and they help to calm the gut so that they can communicate more smoothly and harmoniously and give each other a little good news about how you're feeling and how you're doing. So I would just say altogether, again, to review, that brain health is merely a combination of our mental health or emotional well-being combined with our cognitive health, which is our ability to think, our memory, planning, social skills, all of those things that are the I inside of us, the executive system. And we know that if you have an untreated history of depression, anytime in adulthood, you have the chance, twice the chance of developing dementia as if you don't have that untreated history, which means that if you are having difficulty with stress, mood, or anxiety, it's important to have it assessed and have it treated, so that saving your mental health today is saving your brain tomorrow, because depression is eminently treatable. Dementia is currently incurable. And as Tina mentioned, that the rates are going up and up. And where food comes into this is that the brain-gut relationship is really the closest one that we have in the body. And it's something that we can control. We can control what we eat on a daily basis and really feed our body and our brain and our mind in a way that's healthy, relaxed, and joyful. So I think I'll stop there and hand it over to my better Samira to give us some details about healthy eating. Thank you so much.
All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for this opportunity, and what a great presentation, Dr. Khatri, and thank you so much for giving me this chance to introduce myself. Tina, that was a very great introduction, and I wanted to say, as a registered dietitian, the 22 years or the 2 decades plus of being a dietitian has given me that ability to be, as you said, from the prenatal to postnatal to elderlies, and even to extend it a little bit further, it's to talk about, even going back with the sustainability MBA is learning where the food comes from, or where, what the farmers are. So I feel very privileged of having all that experience, and together that's why the Stack and Spoon has sort of came about, is to how do we stack nutrient dense foods and consume it with spoonful of joy, simply because, as you heard, I don't need to give you stats, but seriously, the brain health is so important, and it does make a simple change in what we eat makes a huge difference. And so I have been given the privilege of talking about 5 hacks, and it has taken me so much because there's so many nutrients I want you to know. And by now everyone's like, okay, Samira, just tell me what to eat, because I need to stay focused. I want to have less brain fogs. I want to have more energy to play, to do the things I want to do. So my first one is the word stop, meaning, you know what? We're bombarded with so many food and nutrition information. We're on Instagram all the time. We're scrolling up and down. We save all these amazing recipes that eventually we'll do one day. So on the point of the stop, I want to be able to tell you, you know what, stop, and in exactly what Dr. Kerr says, be mindful. So I'm going to ask you guys all to stand up because, you know, we've been pretty much all day pretty busy, and we've been trying to work. So if you're sitting, do stand. If you're standing, that's great. Join me. Just take it, you know, let's together roll our shoulders back, take a deep breath and let it go, because you're pretty much intense with all this information. And as Dr. Khatri said, it's being mindful. So the word or the hack that I want to say, it's not just one nutrient, is the word stop. Meaning that if you're getting busy, if you're multitasking, if you're not sure what to do, what's going on, remember, stop and be mindful, be present. So I really can't see any of you, but I really do hope and that you stood up, that you raised and rolled the shoulders and took a deep breath with me. Then in the way of the saying stop, the next thing is, before we even figure out what to eat, I'd like to ask you guys, do you know why we eat? I mean, Dr. Khatri mentioned it, but it would be great if some of you can put it in the chat. Why do we eat? I don't know if you guys can, but either write it in a piece of paper or put it on the chat, and then we get to see, some of you will hopefully have a moment to put in, but generally why we eat. Could be because we're hungry, could be because we want to enjoy something delicious. Someone said to fuel the body, for energy. Thank you, thank you. Energy, prevent headaches, excellent. Social, exactly. Let's see, replenish our energy stores. Habit, fantastic. Stress. And that's great. So the reason I'm asking you is, I want to tell you, you have to ask yourself, why do I want to eat? Because there are 3 ways to identify it. So you stopped, you're mindful. Now you're going to ask yourself, why am I eating? Because there is a way of saying, you know what, I'm eating. It's called the stomach hunger, meaning that you truly are hungry, because some of you said, I need to fuel my body. I need to give my body energy. So identifying that I'm hungry, my stomach is telling me I need to eat, is one. But then there's 2 other hungers, and that is, one of them is mouth hunger. That means like you're working away from home and you really are avoiding that paper or that project or that assignment. And what you want to do is you just want to go into the kitchen, open the fridge, and you're like, I just want to eat something. I feel like something salty. I want something sour. So you're trying to avoid a task and you're distracted because you want to put something in your mouth because you're craving it. And that's called a mouth hunger. And then the third one, which is the heart, meaning that, you know, you're feeling frustrated. Someone said, I'm stressed, or you're just having a very bad day. And every time I mention this, I have this vivid picture. I don't know if you guys ever watched Bridget Jones' Diary, but she just sits in the middle of her room with this bucket of ice cream, and she's so sad. And we've been conditioned. It's a learned behavior that we've been told, like, you know, when you're frustrated, you're sad, whatever it is, a tub of ice cream or a bag of chips is going to help. So I would say stop getting yourself distracted. Try to make sure that you actually come in touch with yourself and find out, why is it that I'm eating? Because if it's stomach, fantastic. You know, you have to fuel your body. The second and the third, which is a mouth or heart, I'm not saying that, oh my God, Samira, I kind of really do want to have, you know, a chocolate when I'm not feeling good. It is I recognize it and to understand what it is and why is it that it's happening, because then it's okay. You acknowledge it and then say to yourself, you know what? Yes, I'm distracted because I'm planning to procrastinate. I don't want to submit that. So either go for a walk, make a call, or just sit yourself down and send out the email. Or if you're frustrated or sad, call a friend and go for a walk with them. So those are some of the tips that I would say. So is everyone good? Thumbs up. Are you with me? Feel free to go through that reaction. Give me some thumbs up so that I know you're listening, which is great because I don't get to see your faces. The next thing I want to do, oh, thank you. Lots of thumbs up. This is exciting. All right. So we've stopped because, as you said, we're being mindful. We're present in this moment. And that moment, and you're like, Samira, you know what? I haven't had breakfast. I haven't had lunch. And it's like 12:30. I've got 20 minutes. I really can't really figure out. I'm not going to stop. But it's really critical that if you just do this one, and that's why we call it a hack, it will be helpful to just say, okay, why am I hungry? Did I miss breakfast? Did I miss lunch? So we've stopped and we now know why. And then you're like, okay, fine, Samira, I've figured it out. I've stopped. What am I going to eat now? So that moves in. And Dr. Khatri kind of give you guys a general idea. You know, we do need certain foods. And there are, for have optimal brain health, we do have a significant amount of nutrients, and about 21 of those nutrients play a critical role in our brain health. But I'm not going to list like the omega-3, the antioxidants, and you'd be writing it away. I do have the information in the takeaway, but I really want you to have this big picture of, okay, what do I need to eat? And I call it, you know what, stock up and have access. So it means that when your pantry has the right food, your fridge has the right food, then you have a better selection of food choices. So, for example, one of the things I wanted to share with you, if you want to call the hack, but it's really interesting because everybody goes in and buys, like I've said, hemp seed or sardines or chia seed. Everyone knows, like you can Google it or go to ChatGPT, what do I need to eat? And I guarantee you, you will all have one of these or one of these. And I'm showing these big, giant things in your pantry. There is no doubt in my mind. However, the thing that I'm saying is stock up on these fantastic things. That's great, but you also need to have access to them. So what I usually say, the second hack is like, listen, you got to get these little containers, and I have a various numbers of them, and I have tons of them here. And the next thing is to actually empty the hemp seed into a shaker or something like this. So then it's sitting in your fridge. So then you can use it when you need it, because I can guarantee you, you'll buy this giant bag and you put it in your pantry, but you read in a recipe that says, hey, listen, or Samira today is going to tell you, sprinkle hemp seed on your bagel and cream cheese. It's not a hard task to do because you love your bagel, you love your cream cheese, but sprinkle hemp seed on it, or sprinkle it on your salad, or put it in your pasta. It doesn't change the flavor significantly, but it adds so much value. It goes back to that nutrient-dense foods. So having access to something like this in your fridge, it's fantastic. So that would be a critical thing, is that if you buy, you're like, listen, I went to the farmer's market, I bought amazing beans from a farmer. Fantastic, because it is so good for us in terms of fiber, in terms of protein, but I just haven't used it. Well, you know what? Open it up and put it in a jar, please. So it's visible and it's easy access. So that is like, so we've stopped, we're mindful, we know why we're eating what we're eating. And now the next step is we kind of have an idea, because we did talk about the food and then the sources. So in order to recognize that, we've all learned about Canada's Food Guide. We know, how many of you, do you know, has anyone heard about Canada's Food Guide, or am I dating myself? Because that's how I started. I first learned the Canada's Food Guide when it was in a circle. Yeah, 1, 2, just 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's not bad. At least I need 30 people to say they've heard of it. That's about probably, yeah, okay, awesome. So if you've heard about Canada's Food Guide, the old version was the 4 food groups. And I loved it because it was very simple. It was, you could visualize it. And then we went to the healthy plate method. So the next thing I have, and I put all that stuff, and that's what we have, stack and spoon, in the sense that they're stack layers, we call them, because we want to, if we're having a hard time figuring out what to eat, we want to say, okay, listen, leafy green vegetables, leafy greens, vegetables, and fruits, they provide us significant amount of nutrients. And the more color they are, the colorful they are, they're darker in color, they're going to give us vitamins and minerals that we need. They're going to give us the antioxidants. So I'm not going to sit here and list for you what they are. What I would suggest is, you know what? Every time you go to a grocery store, pick a leafy green vegetable. Then bring it home and do whatever you need to, whether it's in the salad, whether it's in the soup, but just make that effort to do one change at a time and bringing that food into your kitchen, into your fridge. And knowing that leafy green is going to be good in any kind, sort of like, and then also the other component is, I could sit here and say to you, kale is great for you, or spinach is good for you, but the culture component is significant, because you got to look at your culture and you're like, I want to eat my cultural food. And so you look and say, kale is good for me, but how do I incorporate kale into my curry? How do I incorporate kale into my salad? So it's trying to create that, what's going to work for you, because everyone is different. So that's a critical piece as well. So the layer of fruits and vegetables, and as you see in my background, I have all these fruits and vegetables, and I thought I'll do them layers, then I'll do it. But really, the idea is have plenty. You can't just you can't just stop choosing one food and say, okay, they said salmon is good, and for the rest of your sort of week or next month have salmon. No, every kind of food is important because you want to add that variety in there. You want to be able to connect and try different foods. So we've stopped, we're mindful, we have recognized why we're eating, we've recognized sort of stocking up the right food, and now we're talking about the sources. So leafy green vegetables, we have the next layer, that's a protein. Protein is significant for our brain cells, for our nerves. So we want to make sure that the protein, which I really want to focus on, one of the things that is going to be very significantly nutrient dense, it will have pretty much all the nutrients you need, whether it's vitamin D, whether it's vitamin E, whether it's psyllium and omega-3, we talked about it quite a bit, is sardine. Now, I don't know how many of you guys have actually enjoyed sardine. Does anyone ever buy sardines? They're pretty, I'm not sure. Okay, one or two. And everybody likes it. Oh, I see one heart, some sad faces. I totally get it. So the key with sardine is that it's so important and potent in nutrients that, you know what, this is the time that I'm saying, listen, if you don't love it, I get it. But we just learned that, listen, we do need to make sure we fuel our body and give our brain the nutrients it needs. So it is going to be significant to make sure we consume this. So sardines, if you don't love it, pick a tuna that you like, because tuna is also very good for us. Combine it to smash it together with a bit of lemon juice, some salt and pepper. It's awesome. It would taste fantastic. So we want to be able to incorporate that. We want to be able to incorporate the nuts and the seeds. Those are critical. So things like walnuts and almonds. So my key takeaway for sure in terms of food that you have is that you already have the list from Dr. Khatri, and you can definitely have it in my takeout. But the thing is, once you stop, once you know how to stock it up, it's just have it throughout. So don't just focus on one. Hemp seed is great, chia seed is great, flax seed is great. Instead of having it in just every day, you know what? Have them accessible where you put chia seed in your yogurt, you put flax seed in your salad, you put, or your breakfast, you put hemp seed in your bagel and cream cheese, you put it in your pasta. I often say, you know what, pumpkin seeds are my favorite because when you look at the sort of the items of how many nutrients they have, it is going to be critical to make sure that we have basically a lot of all the nutrients that it has is pretty potent again. So I tend to make my granola and put pumpkin seed in it. I'll make pesto pasta, pumpkin seed in it. And it's a little bit at a time, and throughout you consume it, which is the secret. I find that when you're telling people what to eat, they're like, oh my God, I'm getting so tired of this, like hemp seed every day. Well, don't have it every day. Create that variety. My so far so good. We're all awake. That's fantastic. I just love the connection and the talk. The next thing that's going to be critical. So we've stopped. We have stocked up and now have access to the food, made them accessible. We have now figured out the source. Another thing I really want to talk about when it comes to the source of food, it is critical to know where our food comes from. So it's like that saying we are what we eat. I also want to tag along and say we are what we eat and what it eats, because right now we talk a lot about, oh, is meat good for us? Should we consume meat? Is that a good source? Well, listen, if you are vegetarian, completely respected, you got to find your vitamin B12 source, because that is such a critical thing for the brain. You do need zinc for the brain because our body doesn't store zinc. It just, you have to every day fill it up. And that's going to be really important. And what we want to do is get the meat, for example, if we want to consume red meat, we don't have to consume it a lot, but we do need to make sure it's getting it from the right source. We do have to eat fruits and vegetables, but it's a good idea to buy local and seasonal because it does make a significant difference. I don't know how many people have ever visited a farmer's market and have purchased fruits and vegetables in season. Anybody? Awesome. And how many of you guys have bought a melon from farmer's market and bought a melon at like your locally grocery store and realized, oh my God, I could have the melon that I pick up a melon at a farmer's market. I'm drawn to the smell. So I walk into the farmer's market, the melon, I cut it up and the smell is absolutely amazing. It puts water in my mouth. I want to have it right now. So it does make a difference when we are buying things that are local or that are seasonal, because it is that time for them to consume. And I'm not saying don't consume berries. I would say, listen, buy your frozen berries in the winter, buy your, like I bought peaches in the summer, and for the first time I was like, okay, we got to have these good local peaches, put them in their tray and freeze them up. So it's just making that extra effort to be mindful of where we get our food, where the food comes from. And if you have the ability to go to a farmer's market, you get a chance to actually talk to the farmer and say, hey, listen, what kind of soil do you use? Or what kind of a practice do you have? And it just makes it so much more sustainable, because we are in that sort of phase that we really need to make sure that we're not just focusing on ourselves, but giving back to the planet and making sure that it's working well. So we have these. And the next after the source is, I like to consider you guys to remember swap. And what I mean by that is make a swap. That's going to stay in your head. Does anyone want to share with me, what am I saying? Anyone, any you can write in a chat, but it's making that swap, because 46% of our daily intake from our calories. Well, actually, the studies have shown that Canadians get almost half, which is like approximately 46% of their calories from ultra processed foods. So your sweet cereals, your crackers, your hot dogs, your chicken nuggets, anything ultra processed. And that is so important, that I want to mention that we really don't need those in our diets. And what I would like you ask you to remember is swap it. So make a swap. Say, you know what, I will switch. Maybe I'll make my own chicken nuggets. Maybe instead of the cereal, I'll make my own granola. It's just being mindful of it. It goes back to that stop and saying, how important is it? I'm not saying never have these items, but it is important to know where that food comes from. How is it made? Can you read those ingredients and do you understand it? Because we are not sure what that does to us, because this ties back into that brain and gut connection. And if the gut is like, hey, listen, I need like kefir, I need probiotics, I need to feed my microbiomes, so then I can have a good space here, so then I can send a message to the brain and say, hey, get up, be active, be energized. And then same thing with the brain is saying, hey, listen, I'm hungry, feed me something. So that connection, I always say, it's like a telephone connection. In the olden days, you could say, hey, you would say, hi, can you hear me? And the other would say, I can. So that reception is the connection between the two. And the more you have, the better surface you have, the better fuel you have, that connection is better. It's like, driving a most expensive car. You buy the most expensive car, but you don't put the right gas in it. Well, it's not going to give you what you need. So it's really critical that we fuel our body with the right nutrients. And I'm keeping that affordability in mind. I'm not saying to buy things organic. I'm not saying to buy, no, it's really important to find out, like, our legumes are critical, our plants are important, but they could go on sale, buy them in advance. So it's this mindset. Is once you create this mindset, and then you are able to make those right decisions. And I like to think of that brain and the gut connection. And one of the things we haven't really mentioned is the other thing is that making sure that we do swap our drinks. I work at a location where I stand very close to Starbucks, and I get to often see that most often everybody comes in and buys all these high calorie, high sugar like drinks. And I like when it comes to swap, be mindful of what you're drinking, because water is so critical. It's so important, because 70% of our body is made of water, and it is so making sure that fluid is created, it's clear and it's available, so then the nutrients can bounce and our gut can work, our brain can work, and we're hydrated. Someone mentioned, I eat because I have a headache. It could be because also you're dehydrated. So swapping the kind of drinks that we have is going to be critical as well, to make sure that, am I consuming water? I pretty much give my kids water with mint in it, or I put lemon juice in it for them sometimes. We've done, put chia seed in it. And I love that feeling of the chia seed in the water. So come up with different ways of creating your drink. Sometimes you could put frozen berries, we crush it with water, we put in chia seed, we put a little bit of lemon. It's that creativity. So we've done that. Those are my 4. And then I like to tie it in with the stack it and consume it with spoonful of joy. So the idea, I would say, is, you know what, try to stack things up. We now have a good idea about the food. This is my favorite thing, is that I usually say we have the Greek yogurt. I call this a brain stack. So it's got the Greek yogurt, which is the protein, the probiotic, and then I put chia seed in there, and I put frozen berries. So this is like something we do in the morning. And what I do is I take this to work. By the time I get to work, you know, the beauty of it is that that blueberry is melting. So it goes down, and I don't know if you can't really see, but, and then what we do is I do make my own granolas, which is I put the granola on top. I really wish we had, hopefully if we ever have this session in person, I will be able to demonstrate again, spoonful of joy gets in there, and I get to consume this in the morning, or at that 2 o'clock where I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I going to eat? Because I'm hungry, I'm lethargic, I don't know what to do. And so something like that kind of thing is really important. So bringing it together is, we're going to stop and we're going to be mindful. We're going to take a deep breath. We're going to roll our shoulders. We're going to ask ourselves why we're consuming it. We're going to make sure we have stock up good nutrients in our pantry, in our fridge, and that we've made it accessible. Like, is it like, you know, is it available? And then we do have to look and search in things like, we're going to make sure we have, like, I have my nuts in here. I have my pumpkin seed. So it's literally, I open it, I take it. My kids have access to it. They don't have to worry about it. And then things like my legumes, they're always in a jar. Like, I can just take a handful, put it in my soup, boil them in advance, and stack it in my salad. And you know, various different things that we have. I mean, the miso was mentioned. You know, I purchased these things that are called wakame. They have great source of iodine, which is our brain need, and it's really these wide little little things that you can't see, obviously. You just throw them in the hot water or in your miso soup, and we can definitely, you know, answer the questions and talk some more about it. But something like this, you can find even now these days in any grocery stores. You can find things that are seaweeds. Again, it comes in, you sprinkle it on your cheese and crackers. So in a nutshell, let's stack up all these information that I've just talked about. We talked about stacking nutrient-dense foods, consuming it with spoonful of joy, and drinking your water, and making sure that you have access to these delicious food. And I think that summarizes my presentation. And I think we'll have some time for questions and answers. And I hope you've enjoyed it. Thank you for listening to me and participating.
Thank you so much, ladies. This has been excellent. I know I got a lot of good takeaways myself. We have some time now for Q&A. So please feel free to enter your questions in the chat if you haven't already. I'm going to do my best to work my way through them. If there's a question that we don't get to, we'll definitely try to respond offline after the seminar. So we had a few just come in. What do you recommend for someone who is allergic to nuts?
Well, I think that is a very hard question to answer because there's so many other areas that we can look at them. But in terms of what nuts provides us are your fiber and your calcium, and sort of your protein sources and various different vitamins. So you can look through sort of your typical 24-hour day or what your typical meal is and try to figure out, okay, these are the vitamins I'm missing. We can either do it with supplementation, or we can figure out other foods that are sort of the person's not sensitive to. I think with allergies, it's very unique and it's different, but it's just like anything else. You look at the nutrients that you're missing and you find ways to incorporate that into your daily food intake.
Okay,
I hope
great.
that answers your question. Please feel free to ask me anything else.
Yeah, another one that came in is I have a very busy life. Would supplementing for all these nutrients offer me the same benefits? So I guess like taking supplements versus, you know, incorporating it through the diet.
So I'm going to answer that question in an umbrella format. Is like you're saying, I have a very busy life, and we have to figure out, okay, is that busyness, you do need to take that time to be mindful. So it's more like it's step back and figuring out, how can I make this life more effective or mindful? Because there's nothing wrong with supplementation, but I do like the fact that we're going to sit down and have the moment to sit down and consume food with spoonful of joy. So if the supplementation is because, for example, I can't eat fish, so I need omega-3, definitely. But if it's like, you know what, popping pills from breakfast, lunch, and dinner, I'm not sure that if that's going to be a good substitution. So I don't know if that answers your question, but there's nothing wrong with supplementation if it's complementing your food intake. But my go-to is, first and foremost, is a plate with colors, with stack nutrients that are and sitting down and just really consuming it with spoonful of joy would be my response.
Okay, that's great. I'm going to ask a question to Nasreen. You commented earlier in your presentation about, depression and how that can be linked to Alzheimer's. How does somebody know if they're depressed? Can you give us a couple tips?
Yeah, this is what your doctor is looking for. Sorry, I'm just getting a bit of echo. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So that's a great question. So when you go to see your mental health professional or doctor, this is what they're looking for. So depression is actually a basket of three groups of symptoms. The first is the emotional, so the stereotypical, I feel depressed. So you're feeling too low, too lonely, too angry, too much of the time. The second basket of symptoms are changes that are physical. So changes in sleep, appetite, and energy. Either too much of all of those things or not enough. And then finally are the cognitive symptoms, which is another reason why, which I didn't get to, why depression and cognitive deficits or dementia are connected. That every single person, whether they're 8 years old or 108 years old, still has cognitive deficits when they are depressed. And those are changes in concentration, attention, and ability to make decisions and things like that. So if you've been having some of those symptoms, even suicidal thoughts actually are a form of cognitive distortion or cognitive deficit in a way. So if you've been having some of those symptoms, so the emotional symptoms, physical symptoms, and cognitive symptoms for weeks, and it's not really going away, it's time to get that checkup from the neck up.
Okay, and we had a question come in while you were speaking. They said, does anxiety have the same effect on the brain as depression? So
yes.
Okay.
Yes, the studies now also show that people who have anxiety disorders also have a heightened risk of developing dementia later in life.
Okay. All right, that's great. Thank you very much. That was very informative. Okay, what would you say is the #1 superfood? If you had to, I guess this one's for Samira, if you had to pick one superfood that we can all sort of incorporate, I know you're really big on the, not the anchovies, but the sardines, but what would you say is your #1 superfood?
I think it's so hard to pick that one because we're all so different. I mean, I introduced sardines and anchovies at a very young age to my kids, so I don't think they ever have anything against it. And what I would say is you got to look at the list and figure out what is going to work best for you. I mean, pumpkin seed is good, but if you're allergic to it, that's not going to work. I did offer a group of dietitians. We did put together a recipe book, and I think that was posted. You can glance through it and see what works and what doesn't. In my opinion, I think, and I don't know if Dr. Khatri, you can think of, I think the #1 thing, it's not so much about the food, it's how you look at it. Because if you have that mindset of, oh, do I have to eat this? Or, oh my gosh, I don't eat that, this is not going to be good. Like if you have that negative thoughts when you're looking at the food, it doesn't matter how good that food is, you're telling your brain, I don't like this, but this dietitian told me to eat it and I'm going to eat it. And your gut is like, listen, why are you listening to these people? I don't like it either. So it's just not working well. So I think if we look at food as something that is enjoyable, and I noticed someone said, what is spoonful of joy?
Yeah.
It's just my way of saying, listen, it's just when you're consuming that spoon, the reason I call it spoon is more like, where's my, but when you think about it, it's like, it's a wholeness. You're collecting everything. You have to have the right mindset, the right food, because it could just literally be a tomato that you just bought at a farmer's market and you sliced it, and you're looking at it, and it smells so good with a little bit of lemon juice and salt, and you consume it. It will give you so much more joy than the sardine that's 100% good for you. So my short answer is whatever food that's going to give you that feeling of other than ultra processed food. I feel like there's just so many things I want to answer, but I can't pick one.
So on that note,
yeah.
about ultra processed, we did have a question. They were saying that ultra processed food, does that create inflammation? I know inflammation is like a big buzzword, and I don't know if Nasreen, if you want to comment as well, and maybe how that affects the body too, but I'll let either of you kind of comment there.
Well, I think I'll let Dr. Khatri talk about the physio, like the aspects of it, and then I can just add to it if that would work. Or I think, yeah.
Sure. Yeah, that's a very good point, that physical inflammation. So inflammation in the brain or outside of the brain can have a big impact on mood and metabolism, for sure.
So ultra processed foods, they do obviously increase our inflammation, right? So that would be like anything in a package, right?
Well, so yes, but I mean, anything in package is really hard to say because I don't want to, this comes in a package, but it's a whole food. So I think I would say, think of it as a whole food versus things that are being added in there. And think about it, you know, Dr. Khatri said, it's like, you know what, we need certain nutrients in our body. But what happens is when we are consuming things that the body doesn't understand, you're like, hey, listen, I eat like 2 baskets of blueberry. And isn't that supposed to be good? Because what blueberry does as a berry is just generally a great source of antioxidant. They get rid of the bad stuff in our system so that the body can, but if they don't recognize what these things are, they keep overworking it. So you have to be able to figure out what works for your body. And it goes back to when you eat something, when you ask yourself, okay, I just had this food and I was frustrated, I was running, I just grabbed something, because it's just, it might even, it will add to that, and the body doesn't know how to digest it. But it could be something like, you know, you might get you know, you're rushing, you don't have time, you'll grab an instant noodle, but you don't put the powder in there, you use the instant noodle with a plate full of like vegetables and some pieces of protein, and you consume it in a peaceful moment, that could be good. So I would say with ultra processed food, definitely the chemicals in there, our body's not conditioned to digest it. So it gets confusing, and they don't send the message together. And that's why your mood is sluggish and you're not feeling well, and you're having that brain fog and you're not remembering things.
Yeah. We have a few questions coming in the Q&A. So one of them is, if there is one supplement I could add to my daily diet for brain health, what would it be?
I have some ideas. Dr. Khatri, do you have something that, do you want me to answer that? I would say the one supplement, if you are not consuming fish, I find that omega-3 is absolutely critical because it's a building block for brain cells. So we do
omega-3.
We do omega-3. That would be something that I would say, listen, I'm an advocate for food. And again, there's 21 nutrients that you need. But omega-3 is something that our body doesn't make. You do need to have, you do need to provide. And generally it's great if you get it from a fish or seafood, although flaxseed and hemp seed, and they would have omega-3, but they're different types. So I would think if you get a really good source of omega-3, would be something. Again, it's very hard for me to recommend, but it would be something to like have a conversation with your physician, do a bit of research, and then make that decision.
Another one here is, it's the sardine topic has come up again. So, so one person saying that they don't love them. Do you have any suggestions on how to eat or serve them? And asking if they are also really high in salt and if that would be a concern.
So generally, like, let's just, because sardines, I feel like I don't work for this company, just to be clear, I don't work for them. It's just that when you look at the nutritional content, it has your protein, so you do need protein. It's like 17 grams of protein for like this container, if you want to look at it. And you're not going to consume this entire container, just as an FYI. But it has selenium, which is it's so critical for our sort of for our system, because it's something that we need, the vitamin D that we need. You know what, right now we're not getting enough sun, and it has a good source of vitamin C. It has a great source of omega-3. So, and again, we're talking about spoonful. In the recipe book, there are some things that you could do. I would say start small. So if you're buying this container, have a discussion with the family, like, I don't know how, but you open the container, say, guys, let's try this. You might just have to have this much of it first. And then you're like, okay, how do I start making? So the other day, what I did was I took the tuna and I smashed it and I put the sardines in there. So the taste of the tuna overpowered the sardine, but I knew when I was consuming it that I was getting extra protein and extra nutrients. So that is one way. We sometimes order pizza because that's what we do. We put anchovies or sardines in it, and sort of like as a supplement, again, small amount. And the other thing I wanted to say was, you asked about salt. Again, looking at, we're not going to sit here and, like, for example, in this one, this would have 330 milligrams, so 14%. So you're not going to consume this entire thing, and you gradually will consume it, because obviously, so it's everything is about that relevancy. Am I gonna, if you look at a bag of chips, it's like, it's almost like, going to McDonald's and ordering salad, but ordering with like supersized fries, or you order the Big Mac with French fries and you get a Diet Coke. It's like, are you like, let's just have a balance, create something like, eat the sardines, but and on the topic of sardines, anchovies don't have as much nutrients as the sardines, but they do have the benefits. They're much higher salt. And so that is my response.
Okay, that's great. That makes sense. We have a question here about grapes as a snack. Are they okay? And what about pomegranates? Are they worth the effort? I guess, the time spent getting to the goodness.
And I see that question, and I would say, I would ask Carol, is like, what do you, if it's something that you enjoy, and if it's something that's good, you can have it. And pomegranate, I just love pomegranate. I think it's actually, is it worth the effort? Well, if you're sitting with a group of people and you're getting your hands dirty and you're picking each one of those things, they're packed with nutrients. They're very nutrient dense. They're a great source of vitamins and antioxidants. So I would say, you know what, if you sit around and have that with a little bit of a joy in there, I think it is so worth it. But then again, it's all back to, what would you like to do? Maybe you don't, if you're wearing all white and you're at a party, I won't recommend it to sit there with pomegranate. But it's bringing that sort of, creating that opportunity to explore a new food, and especially when they're in season, it's just like, you open it up and that color and the tastes.
And grapes are good. I've heard some people freeze grapes. I heard that's like a good snack.
So grapes, if you think about it, if you have diabetes, the grapes are quite high in sugar. And we recommend 20 grapes. And I often say, you know what, it's sort of like, nobody's going to sit there and have 20 grapes, because it's just not going to work. If you either sit down and enjoy it. So I would say, you know what, if you really love grapes, I can never say that there's no food that I would say avoid it. I would say, let's try the foods. Like, everything behind me is all delicious. But everything is in the right amount. Let's talk about portion size. And we didn't have enough time today. There's so many things we could say. The portion matters. Like, if you look at it, you have your hand, the palm of your hand is going to be the size of your protein, the size of your fist is going to be your pasta and rice. Pretty much, if you think about, as I said, the palm of your hand is going to be for your meat. So those are the things that we could talk about. I would say, in summary, look at how much you're consuming. Ask yourself, you know, do I have to have like 2 cups of it, or can I be okay with 20 grapes? They are very sweet. They are very tasty when they're in season. But the sustainability thing is kicking out to me. If they're coming from a far distance, I would say that don't necessarily need to have them if they're coming from a far distance, but do enjoy them. If it brings you joy, you can have it at the right amount. The portion is important.
Okay, great. Okay, Samira, we're going to do rapid fire. If you could give us some quick responses. We have 3 more questions we want to get through, and then we're going to try to wrap up in 3 minutes. So Colleen is asking a non-intense way to sweeten foods for a diabetic. Yeah, any comments there?
A non-intense way to sweeten foods for diabetics. And you know what? I would say try to figure out, use fruits and vegetables. I mean, obviously not vegetables, but fruits. Add fruits, like adding berries to your yogurt, adding berries to your drink if they want. It's a very difficult question because I would want to know what they're consuming. What is their diet like? What is their level of sweetness? Like, why are they craving that sweet? Is it because they want sweet in their coffee? That's going to be challenging. And if they are diabetic, well, we do want to make sure that they're consuming the right amount. So that would be a bit of a more personal looking at the diet history.
Yeah.
But I would say usually adding fruits to the salad is a good way.
Fruits is an easy hack. Okay.
Yes.
Canned beans, are they a good source of protein versus buying beans and boiling them in advance?
Yes. You know what? Obviously, we want to buy them like you can boil them, but with the canned beans, now that the canned beans have like that sort of like, they're paying more attention to the types of the cans. My thing to say is, if you have no other choice but to eat the canned beans, I'd rather you buy the canned beans, rinse them off, and consume the legumes, rather than be like, oh, I can't cook with them, I can't boil them. So I would say, number one, I would want you to consume it. If you can soak it up and cook it the next day, but in terms of nutritional value, they're equivalent.
Okay. And then the last question here is sugar. Sugar is obviously a very common ingredient in our diets. How do you see the best way to manage and minimize sugar intake? So that'll be the last question tonight.
Okay. I would say, Paul, look at your daily food intake. Are you eating breakfast? Are you eating lunch? Are you eating dinner? Are you having protein at every meal? I want to know, why is sugar? Are you referring sugar in your food, which means you put it in, you have to have it in your coffee, you have to have it in cereal.
Right, adding it to things.
Yeah, so it's like, why are we having sugar? Like, if you're baking something, I mean, even the granola, if you buy granolas, when you look at them, that pretty much every granola has sugar. You really don't need the sugar in granola. You can, add other, like, you can add maple syrup or date syrup. So question would be back at you, is like, why do you need that sugar? Is it the food process? Are you eating processed food? Is it ultra processed food? But the key would be is that having good source of protein and having enough fiber and fiber in your diet, it's going to prevent you from craving that sweetness because you didn't eat breakfast in the morning. So then you arrive at the office and you're like, okay, I'm going to have coffee with a croissant because, I'm hungry. And then you go and do that. And then comes lunchtime, you grab yourself a quick sandwich, and around 1:32, you're like, oh my gosh, someone brings a donut and Timbits. You're like, well, my lunch was a salad. I didn't have breakfast. I can have this donut. And it's like, no, you can't, but you do anyways. And I'm not referring this to you, Paul. Is just a general comment. And then, you're famished by the time you get home, dinner is ready, you sit there and you're not even paying attention to what you're eating because you're so hungry. You overeat, your portions are too high, and then you're just like, that's it, I'm done, stressful day, didn't consume anything, my brain is shut down, my gut is done, sit in front of the TV and watch a show. It's not exactly going to be the ideal.
I think we can all relate to that in some way or another.
I just wanted to say something also, is that, understanding, we just talked about, is so important to just make sure that you're not just focused on one food. How do I eat sugar? How do I do this? It's really creating that whole food and creating the opportunity to consume food holistically is going to be the key to the success of achieving that mind, fueling the mind.
Well, I thought this was excellent. I definitely had a lot of good takeaways for myself personally, like little things that I can be doing differently. Nasreen, Samira, thank you both so much for your time and for your your knowledge and your expertise.
Thank you.
We have put the handouts in the webinar chat. We'll make sure that we get those to you as well. So look out for that. And we have also recorded this. So I believe we're going to do our best to try to circulate that as well following the seminar. But everyone, thank you again for coming. Hopefully we can all take 1 or 2 key takeaways from this and implement this with ourselves and with our loved ones and with our families, and ultimately lead healthier, happier, more joyful lives. So with that, good night, good evening, and stay well. Bye, everyone.
Thank you very
Take
much. It
care.
was fantastic.